Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul introduced an amendment to a short-term funding measure at the end of last week designed to prevent the quote-unquote government shutdown, which, of course, we know is the furlough of a small percentage of the federal workforce that ultimately turns out to be paid vacation. The amendment, interesting. It harkens back to a facility the Fed set up during the COVID era, which the CDC has officially closed the books on now that they've said treat it like the flu finally. But it also projects into the future, a future in which states like, well, Rand Paul's home state, Kentucky, and Illinois will not be able to pay their public sector pension obligations. Take a listen to Rand.
Mr. President, here we go again. Senators of both parties will once again kick the can down the road. Our national debt is over $34 trillion and growing at an alarming rate. The majority of the Senate meets today to vote once again for more deficit spending. We now know that the Federal Reserve is not only buying the federal debt, they're buying the debt of profligate large spending states like California, New York, and Illinois. My amendment would make it explicitly illegal for the Federal Reserve to buy the debt of these big spending profligate individual states. It was never intended that Congress give the Fed the power, and we should make sure that it is explicit. The Federal Reserve cannot buy the debt of individual states. I urge a yes vote.
Mm-hmm. You won't be surprised to learn that amendment failed, and the spending goes on, and the Fed's omnipotence when it comes to buying debt continues unabated. For more on this and other matters economic, Scott the Cow Guy Shellady, market specialist for Market Day Report, 10:30 to 1 Chicago time, as well as the Cow Guy Close, 1 to 1:30, both at RFD-TV. That's where you'll find Scott the Cow Guy when he's not with us. Scott, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
What about Rand Paul's amendment there? I mean, Illinois, I think we accessed that Fed facility that was set up during COVID to the tune of about $3.2 billion. Now, the Fed says the states like Illinois pay that all back, but I'd like to see the receipts.
Yeah, well, if the Fed can't buy the debt, I mean, remember that game Asteroids? There was that hyperspace button. I think we would go hyperspace into being bankrupt a lot faster, because if this debt was put out in the open market, nobody would want to pay what the Fed's paying, which would mean the interest on that debt that these states need would be prohibitively high, usurious, and then everything would be over a lot faster. I mean, you're exactly right. He's exactly right. We're going to be at $35 trillion in June as far as the national. How about this? This is even better. Last quarter, we grew in dollar terms to the tune of $330 billion. All right, in one quarter. But it cost us in deficit spending $830 billion to buy that growth. We're not even getting 1-to-1. We get it costs us about $2.40 of deficit spending to buy a dollar worth of GDP. It's absolutely insane. And as I don't know who said it, but as bankruptcy happens, it just starts slowly, and all of a sudden it happens all at once. Yeah, that is where we're going. I mean, it's undeniable. It's undeniable.
Well, but specifically, but specifically with the Fed, then, I mean, again, we once upon a time, I guess we were poo-pooing the modern monetary theorists, but they seem to have won the day. I mean, certainly the Senate, rejecting Rand Paul's amendment, says, no, let's give the Fed the tools they need in the toolbox to help the states, and let's continue to allow for these manipulations that you're describing, because what's the harm?
Well, the harm is we'll be bankrupt. I mean, we'll lose. I mean, it's.
We are now. It doesn't.
I know it is.
So what?
Right,
we
you're
are
exactly
now.
right.
So what?
Right. Okay. So then I'll argue the fact that Rand Paul was just sitting around managing a bunch of people that wanted to decide where they put the deck chairs in the Titanic. I mean, that's all they're doing. You're right. We're structurally bankrupt right now, just like the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. And nobody wants to talk about it because it's not electable. You're not going to get elected office next year if you try to do something about it.
Well, but nobody.
Will be done about it. Whether.
Well, but here's the thing, and this is it's always difficult to pin people down. Well, nobody wants to talk about it because nobody needs to talk about it because there's not enough pain being inflicted. So what does the pain look like? Everything's hunky dory. Look at Bitcoin's at 65,000 and Dow's at record high. So what's the big deal? Well, all this talk about it's money we don't have to pay back. It's not a big deal. The deficits, but we've been doing it for so long that we're inert to it. So where's the pain? There's no pain.
Well, the pain is when we become structurally bankrupt, and that is because we won't get anybody to be able to buy our bonds because the bonds that they bought are going to be paid back with dollars that are worth nothing. That's how we're going to actually default on our debt. And when that happens, and it's going to happen at some point in time, this cannot keep happening. I mean, right now, our economy is held up by NVIDIA stock and Taylor Swift, okay? You just mentioned a few things that are... You just mentioned a few things. Every asset class is outperforming again. Everything's just fine, except for the fact that we're massively in debt. And we'll keep Congress in session overnight, and everybody's going to feel sorry for them when they decide that, hey, they need more deficit spending to give to other countries. I mean, it's insane. We're actually selling bonds to China to take that money and give to other countries. We're out of our minds.
All right. So with this debt looming, well, obviously it's here, but will millennials get Social Security? Will you get Social Security?
I'm planning on not getting any. I think it will be means tested. It will go away for anybody at a certain level of income or net worth. You will not get the money you put away for the last 40 years. No. So
that presumes some sort of major economic calamity because that's the only thing that would prompt that sort of structural reform.
Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, okay, maybe I'll give you that. But on the other flip side of that is it's already gone anyway. I mean, it's not there.
Well, I understand.
So they don't even have
it. Our money. I mean,
but okay. It's our money. What does that even mean? I mean, it's just it's our money, but it's like right. You stole my money. That was my money. I know I stole it. So now it's mine.
Right.
Now I have it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, there has to be a reckoning, Dan. It cannot keep going on forever. You cannot be. We will get to a point where we do.
Well, wait. Can we opt out of Social Security?
That's like. Can I pay more in income taxes? Well, sure you can, but no, who's going to do that? You're going to do that on enough of a scale out of some sort of selflessness when everybody's attitude is that's my money because it is your money. But I'm going to do this. Then you have the free rider problem. I mean, that's not how you. That's not how it's going to go down.
Well, yeah.
But the only way this goes down the way that you say, Scott, in my view, in anything near the short term, is if you believe that America's status as a reserve currency was truly in danger, and I don't believe that.
I think it is. I mean, there's only been I think there's been 5 reserve currencies over the last 500 years or whatever that may be. It started with Portugal, and then obviously the last one was Great Britain. And they all have a rough time horizon of about 105 years. And we're about 105 years old as far as being the reserve currency. And with what's been happening with the BRICS, there's a lot of deals being done now that are cutting out the U.S. dollar, even today, that I think that's absolutely being threatened. I mean, we could have another 2, 3, 5 years of it, but at some point in time,
you think it's a 5-year horizon where we could lose our status as the reserve currency of the world? No way. We're like 70% of commercial transactions are done in dollars, and I mean, I'm not. This is not a defense of our fiscal and monetary policy, but it's just to look at the rest of the world. And as I borrow from Buckley all the time, we're still the tallest skyscraper in Wichita. I mean, look at this number out of Canada, for example. Canada's GDP grew 1.1% between the fourth quarter of 2022 and 23, while its population grew by 3.2. GDP per capita is now falling at 2% annually. Zero economic growth in Canada in more than 6 years. So, I mean, the West is self-immolating. And but China's centrally planned, which is why it never can achieve the strength of its numbers of its number of people. So, or the dynamism of the American economy, even as saddled as it is. So this idea like this 2-year, 5-year reserve currency. I mean, I'm not I'm not trying to ridicule, but I mean, it sounds like AOC predicting the end of days in 2030.
No, I'll tell you what. Everybody when you talk like that, when I talk like that, will go right to the fact that they think that so the yuan's going to be the reserve currency next. That's the first thing they say every single time. And I don't know if it's 5 years, but this cannot continue. So my New Year's resolution this year was to try not to put dates on things. Yeah. I'm telling you, the way these books add up, it cannot continue. There's going to be a day of reckoning, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I spell reckoning W-R-E-C-K, by the way, when we cannot pay our bills anymore because we are now printing money to pay interest. We're going to have, it's already happening, we're going to have more in interest payments than we spend on our national security, our armed forces. I mean, when did you ever think that could be possible? And that happens fast, and we're at that inflection point. Talk to a guy that knows a lot about bonds, and again, it goes back to that bankruptcy quote. It starts slowly, then it all of a sudden happens all at once. That is the inflection point that we're at right now. And it's unelectable to try to do anything about it. So they're just going to lead us down the path. They're just arguing about the next years and the Titanic. That's all they're doing.
And what would be? Do you think it will be something that is like, as you're sort of describing and referencing Hemingway, where the bottom just falls out, or is there going to be an obvious gathering storm that says we're here now? I mean, you're sort of saying we are here, but what's people trying to look for indicators that that's about to go down?
I think it's going to be. I think it'll be more like that the slow rolling stone from Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't think you're going to have this. This one. It's all going to explode at one point in time. It's just going to be this inertia that slowly brings us down because we can't get out from underneath it without having some drastic things happen. I'm not going to get my Social Security. Anybody that thinks that they are under the age of 60 that has any type of assets, you should probably be talking to somebody about what you do when you don't get it, because it's just not there. Again, we're selling bonds to take capital in to give to other countries. It's insane. So I don't know what people want to hear.
Yeah, no.
What we're doing now is not going to work.
What does Bitcoin at 65,000 tell you? What should we read into that?
I believe a lot of these things are the canary in the coal mine. It's absolutely insane. I mean, listen, what does I understand the reasons why people like the idea of Bitcoin, but I guarantee you, because these governments are so broke, Dan, they're going to have to try to track it and tax it. End of story, number one. Number two, I was a chief compliance officer in London about 4 years ago. You know how much dodgy dealings get done at Bitcoin? There's no way it could pass the muster in this country. So the reason it's at 65,000, as Warren Buffett says, is it's got one investment theory, and it's not even investment theory. Is anybody that buys Bitcoin today is only buying it because they think the guy behind them in line is going to spend more than they did on it.
I wanted to get your take on a cultural thing because, your particular background in the dairy industry and your families and so forth. The left is making a big deal of late about white rural voters, white rural voter rage. And you had a book come out last week from an academic, University of Maryland, and a Washington Post columnist, basically saying that white rural voters are the most racist, most xenophobic, most given to conspiracy theories, most open to violence against their government of any of any demographic in the country. And so white rural rage poses a real threat to our democracy.
I almost have nothing to say about it because it's absolute garbage. I speak a lot in the country. I just got back from Richmond, Virginia. I'm going out to Broken Bow, Nebraska in 2 weeks, and then after that I go out to Holstein, Iowa. How about that for being out in the middle of nowhere? And I'll tell you right now, the reason why I love this job is because the viewership of RFD-TV is generally ranchers and farmers, generally the middle of America. Yes, there's big farming industries in both California and New York, but the reason why I love it so much is this is the last bastion of people that don't fall for the garbage. They're commonsensical, they work hard, they don't get scared, and they want to be left alone so they can, bring the cattle to the market and grow your food. They're fantastic because they don't fall for this transgender stuff. They're not falling for everything else. If it doesn't feel good in their stomach and their heart, they don't do it. And I wish the rest of the country did that.
I mean, they're not into pronouns? I'm shocked. But did any of them respond to this new book that's out?
I don't know. What's the name of the book? I'm going to bring it up today. I'll go get it.
White rural rage. Rural rage. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no rage. There's no rage.
Wow.
They just have common sense, and they're angry about the fact that what's happening to their country right in front of their very eyes. And they stand up about it because that's they're living in the grocery store, right? They didn't get when it came to COVID, right? They didn't get to lock their storefront and hide under their desk, sucking their thumb, waiting for the government to come out with a vaccine or give more money. They had to go feed the cows, milk the cows, or put the crops in the ground. They couldn't run. That's who you're talking about.
Well, there's another book out too that you should actually pick up that gives a more honest picture and based on 10,000 surveys of rural voters called The Rural Voter by two professors from Colby College who we talked to last week. That's actually quite good. The other one is just the agitprop for the left. But people should be aware that both of those books are out there and those narratives. Scott the Cow Guy, Shellady, market specialist for Market Day Report, 10:30 to 1. The Cow Guy closed 1 to 1:30 Chicago time, both at RFD-TV. Scott, thanks as always.
All right. See you guys. Have a good day.
You too, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
At Turnkey, we understand that success isn't just about the bottom line. It's about creating a business that aligns with your own personal goals and aspirations. Hi, this is David Kolsak, President